Imagine the most powerful woman in the palace, once walking with her head in the clouds, now crawling on the floor like a wounded bird. After 90 days of being banished, Oluwashado has finally returned from the great Onifa's healing home. But she didn't come back to reclaim her throne with pride. She came back broken, falling at the feet of the Golden King while Queen Naomi watched in total silence. Is Oluwashado truly sorry, or is she just terrified of a secret oath that is starting to consume her? And what did Queen Naomi see in Oluwashado's eyes that made her stay so quiet? A short prayer for my crown guest friends and families. I pray for every one of you watching today. May you never fall into a trap that you cannot escape. May every evil alliance formed against your progress be scattered by fire. And may the peace of the land of the Golden Crown locate your doorstep. Amen. What a gwan, my crown guest friends and families. You are welcome back to the one and only Crown Guest, where we serve the tea while it's still boiling. If you are new here, you are in for a ride. Oh yeah, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any part of this massive story. Trust me, you want to be part of this family. A quick note, we have deep respect for the Yoruba culture and the traditions of the land of the Golden Crown. Because of this, we use special fictional names for certain people and sacred rituals. If you stay with us and keep watching, you will understand these names and the story perfectly. The atmosphere in the land of the Golden Crown has been heavy, almost like the clouds are pregnant with a rain of secrets. For 3 solid months, the inner chamber of the Golden King was a forbidden zone for Oluwashado. You see, when a palace is rocked by betrayal, the walls themselves seem to close in on the guilty. Oluwashado, who once walked these hallways with a shoulder so high it could touch the ceiling, had been sent away to the great Onifa's healing home to find herself, or perhaps to be hidden away until the wahala she caused had settled. But today, the wind changed direction. News started filtering out that the treatment at the great Onifa's was complete. They said she had been cleansed, but a woman who stepped out of that healing home was a shadow of the person we used to know. My crown guest friends and families, you need to understand the tension. When she arrived at the palace, she didn't head to her own quarters to freshen up. No, she went straight for the lion's den. She went looking for the Golden King. She reached the entrance of the chamber, her heart likely beating like a traditional drum. She looked around, expecting the guards to block her path, expecting the very floor to reject her feet. For 3 months, she had been an outsider in her own home. When she didn't see the Golden King downstairs, she almost turned back. The fear was real. She thought, have they shut it off forever? Is my name deleted from the records of the Golden Crown? She sat there, waiting, trembling. She sent word upstairs that she had returned from the wilderness of her own making. To the surprise of everyone standing by, the Golden King gave the command, usher her in. As the heavy doors opened, the scent of expensive incense and royal power hit her. But the king wasn't alone. Sitting there, calm and elegant as ever, was Queen Naomi. This scene was set for a confrontation that would make your blood run cold. Oluwashado didn't even wait to be addressed. The moment her eyes met the Golden King's, her knees hit the floor with a sound that echoed through the room. The humility was shocking. This wasn't the woman we knew. This wasn't the woman who would stand tall and challenge the throne. This was a woman broken into 1,000 pieces. She couldn't even lift her face. If you saw the way she was shaking, you would wonder if she was the same person who had been part of the palace wahala for the last few years. She began to speak through a throat tight with emotion. I have failed you, she whispered. And then the floodgates opened. They said if tears could form a stream inside a palace, there would have been a small river flowing out of that chamber. She cried for her lost position. She cried for her reputation. But mostly, she cried out of a deep, dark fear that has been haunting her since this evil alliance began. She looked at the Golden King and confessed that she had lost her way. She claimed that when she first joined the circle of those opposing him, she didn't see it as betrayal. She saw it as protection. She was scared of the other women, scared of losing her place, and she thought by aligning with the affair that she would be safe. But by the time she realized that she had walked into a trap, the trap had already snapped shut. She spoke about the oath, my crown guest friends and families. This is where the suspense gets sick. She wasn't just crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she was terrified. She had taken a non-disclosure oath with people far more powerful than she realized. She told the Golden King that she was afraid of her life, afraid for her family, and that the weight of the secrets she was carrying it was crushing her soul. She felt she didn't even deserve to be in the same room with the king, yet here she was begging for a mercy she felt she had already wasted. She mentioned that all those times she stood up openly to challenge the Golden King, it wasn't the real Oloye shadow, it was the influence of the alliance pushing her to act. The king sat there, his face like a mask of stone. He didn't interrupt her, he didn't shout. He just watched her with a look of pure, unadulterated disappointment. It was the kind of silence that is louder than the gunshot. And Queen Naomi, she sat there like a statue of grace, watching the woman who once had been her rival crumble into nothingness. The room was filled with the sound of Olui's shadow sobbing. She was practically gasping for air, pleading for one more chance, claiming that if she had known the path would lead to this shame, she would have never listened to the whispers of the Ife elders. She looked at the Golden King with eyes that were red and swollen, hoping for a sign, any sign that the man she once called her husband still had a drop of love for her. But the silence continued. The king didn't move. The jewel didn't speak. It was as if time had frozen inside the chamber. Olori Shadow stayed on her knees, her forehead touching the floor, waiting for a verdict that could either stake her or finish her completely.
African, Nigerian, my members and Crown G's friends and families, you need to imagine the pin drop silence that filled that room. Olori's shadow was still on the floor, her body shaking from the weight of her own words. It wasn't just a regular cry. It was the kind of weeping that comes when a person realizes they have traded their gold for sand. She began to open up more about the evil alliance that had held her captive for so long. She confessed that when this whole thing started out, she felt she was doing the right thing. She told the Golden King that she was manipulated into believing that the king no longer had her back. The people she called her allies, those powerful Ife elders, had whispered into her ears until she couldn't hear the truth anymore. She admitted that she was lured into a circle where they promised her total control and security. But instead, they gave her a cage. The most chilling part of her confession was when she spoke about the oath. She told the king that she had entered a spiritual and physical agreement that she couldn't just walk away from. This wasn't just a handshake. It was a deep, dark commitment involving non-disclosure. She was warned that if she ever leaked their plans or tried to pull out, the consequences would be dire. Not just for her, but for her entire family. This was why she stayed in the wahala, even when she knew it was wrong. She was living in a state of constant, paralyzing fear. As she spoke, she looked at the Golden King with eyes that were begging for a lifeline. She told him that the person who stood up to challenge him, the person who made those public scenes and tried to drag the name of the land of the Golden Crown in the mud, was not her true self. She claimed she was like a puppet being pulled by strings, and those strings were held by people who wanted to see the throne fall. The suspense in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every time she mentioned a name or a detail about the alliance, the air seemed to get cold. She was revealing the inner workings of a plot that had been brewing for 3 years, a vicious circle of betrayal that had kept the palace in a state of war. She said she felt so ashamed to even be standing there, or rather, kneeling there, because she knew she had betrayed the one person who had given her everything. She turned her gaze slightly towards Queen Naomi, and for a second, the two women locked eyes. Olori Shadow's eyes were full of regrets and a strange kind of humility that no one ever expected to see from her. She didn't try to argue. She didn't try to justify her actions with pride. She just kept repeating, "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I didn't know it would go this deep. I didn't know the trap was this big." She begged the Golden King to understand that she was a victim of her own ambition and the greed of the elders. She explained that by the time she saw the true face of the people she was working with, she was already too deep in the mud. She was afraid that if she spoke out, she would be silenced forever. So she kept playing the part, kept acting the drama while her soul was dying in sake. The way she was pouring out these secrets was like someone who knew they had nothing left to lose. She was stripping herself of all her royal dignity, laying it all at the feet of the king. She told him that even if he never took her back as a wife, she just wanted to be free from the guilt and the shadow of the oath. She wanted to be able to breathe again without looking over her shoulder. But even with all this emotional breakdown, the Golden King remained a mystery. He didn't offer a hand to pull her up. He didn't tell her to stop crying. He just sat there, listening to the woman who had once been his closest confidant reveal how she became his greatest enemy. The disappointment on his face was deeper than any anger. It was the look of a man who had seen too much and was wondering if he could ever trust anything that came out of her mouth again. The question on everyone's mind in that chamber was,
Is this another performance? Is Olori's shadow truly broken? Or is this a new strategy to find her way back into the king's good graces now that her allies have failed her?
The tension inside that chamber was now at a breaking point. As Olori's shadow continued to pour out her soul, the room felt like it was shrinking. She started talking about the specific moments when the Wahala reached its peak. She confessed that they were nights she couldn't sleep because the weight of the secret she held for the Ife elders felt like a physical mountain on her chest. She looked at the Golden King and admitted that she had been used as a tool to monitor his movements and report back to those who sought to weaken the throne. Every time she mentioned the oath, her voice would shake. She explained that this wasn't just about politics or palace rank, it was a spiritual chain. She told him, they told me that if I ever stopped, my life would be the price. You could see the terror in her eyes. It wasn't the kind of fear you can fake. This was the fear of a woman who knew she had played with fire and was now covered in burns. As she spoke, she turned her attention to Queen Naomi. The atmosphere shifted again. My people, imagine the scene. The woman who had been through so much, sitting there with a heart of gold, watching her former rival in such a pathetic state. Olori's shadow began to apologize directly to her. She confessed that the shakara and the public challenges were all parts of a script written by the evil alliance to create division in the palace. She admitted that she was jealous, yes, but that the elders fueled that jealousy until it turned into a weapon of destruction. She told Queen Naomi, I saw you as the enemy because he told me you were the one taking my light. I began to realize I was the one blowing out my own candle. The room was silent as the grave. The Golden King finally shifted in his seat. This was the moment everyone was waiting for. He leaned forward, his eyes piercing through Olori's shadow's broken spirit. He didn't speak immediately, but his presence was like a heavy blanket over the room. You could see the struggle in his heart. This was a man who had loved this woman, a man who had given her a seat of honor in the land of the Golden Crown, only to be repaid with a knife in the back. Olori's shadow's crying had turned into a low moan of pain. She was exhausted. She had spent hours at the great Onifa's home being cleansed, but the real cleansing was happening right here on the floor of the king's chamber. She begged for mercy not just for herself but for her lineage. She told the king that she was ready to face whatever punishment he deemed fit as long as the shadow of the Ife elders and their dark oath was lifted from her head. At this point, Queen Naomi did something that shocked everyone. She didn't mock her. She didn't tell her, I told you so. Instead, she looked at the woman on the floor with a gaze that was almost empathetic. It was as if she was seeing the prisoner, not the criminal. She looked at the Golden King, and for a brief moment, a silent conversation passed between them. The king's expression softened just a tiny bit, but the disappointment was still there, thick and heavy. Olori's shadow finally spoke, his voice deep and rumbling like distant thunder. He asked her one question. Why now? He wanted to know why she was coming clean now, after 3 years of a vicious circle of lies. Was it because she was truly sorry, or because the great Onifa had revealed that her time was running out? Olori's shadow couldn't even find the words. She just kept shaking her head, her tears soaking into the royal carpet. She claimed that the treatment she received had opened her eyes to the reality of the trap she was in. She realized that the people she thought were her protectors were actually her executioners. My crown gives friends and families. The drama in the palace is reaching a level we have never seen before. Is it possible for a king to forgive a betrayal like that went this deep? Or is this just the beginning of an even bigger wahala that will shake the very foundations of the land of the Golden Crown?
We have reached the climax of this palace drama. The air in the chamber was vibrating with a heavy silence after the Golden King asked that one powerful question. Why now? Olori's shadow was still on the floor, her energy completely spent. She whispered that she had seen the end of the road. She confessed that while she was at the great Onifa's healing home, she had a realization that no amount of power or alliance was worth the hell she was living in. She told the king that she was tired of being a pawn in a game she didn't even understand. She looked up at the Golden King one last time and said, if I die today, let me die with the truth on my lips. I betrayed the love you gave me, and for that, I am more than ashamed. Then the Golden King stood up. The room went cold. Everyone expected him to order the guards to take her away forever. But instead, he looked at her and said that while mercy is a virtue, trust is something that must be earned back with years of sacrifice. He told her that her cleansing at the great Ooni fight was just the beginning. The real healing would be for her to completely disconnect from the Ife elders and every dark oath she had taken. He didn't give her a hug, he didn't tell her all was forgiven. He simply gave her a chance to live, but under a watchful eye. He told her that her days of shakara and gragra were over. From now on, she would have to prove her loyalty every single day, or the gates of the land of the golden crown will be shut against her for eternity. As Olori Sado was led out of the chamber, still weeping but looking like a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders, Queen Naomi remained in her seat. She didn't say a word until the end, but her presence was a reminder that light will always outshine the darkness. Now, my crown gist friends and families, we have to be very careful with this information. Please remember that all the things we have discussed today, the crying, the confession, and the secret meetings in the chamber, are all alleged and unverified rumors making the rounds on social media. These are stories we are hearing from the grapevine, and they should not be taken as absolute facts yet. We are just bringing you the updates as they fly across the internet. Whether Olori Shadow has truly changed or if this is just another layer of palaswala, only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, the land of the golden crown will never be the same again. Thank you for staying with me through this deep dive. If you enjoyed this update, make sure you share this video and tell a friend to tell a friend about Crown Gist.